Hey there everyone, welcome back to the follow-up series of walkthrough. In this video we're going to discuss about reading passage 2, The Little Ice Age. So Little Ice Age, we have some sort of, the matching headings. We can see that. Oh, I forgot about highlighted these. So we have a list of headings, and you can see that paragraph A and C has already been answered for us. So we just want to remove that, so we don't have to get confused about it. So we have that, and we have this one as well. We're going to remove it and do it as such, and then followed by summary completion, where it requires for us to choose a suitable word, and then we have some sort of classification, where we have to find the claims that, or the sentence, some sort of a sentence ending, versus classify the following events as occurred during these three periods. All right, so I think while we do matching headings, I think we will be able to find answers to these. So it's better to start with the list of headings. All right, let's get started with the paragraph A. Little Ice Age. This book will provide a detailed examination of the Little Ice Age and other climatic shifts, or maybe climatic shifts, climate shifts, changes. But before I embark on that, let me provide a historical context. We tend to think of a climate as opposed to weather as something unchanging, yet humanity has been at the mercy of climate change for its entire existence, with at least 8 glacial episodes in the past 730,000 years. Our ancestors adapted to the universal but irregular global warming since the end of the last great ice age around 10,000 years ago with dazzling opportunism. They developed strategies for surviving harsh drought cycles, decades of heavy rainfall, or unaccustomed cold, adapted to agriculture and stock raising, which revolutionized human life, and founded the world's first pre-industrial civilization in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas. But the price of sudden climate change in famine, disease, and suffering was often high. So let's see. Is there anything? So let's see. The paragraph A. 8. People have always responded to climate change. People have always responded to the climate change. All right. So we have to understand that people have always responded to climate change. All right. They developed strategies. They're talking about human beings. Developed strategies for surviving harsh drought cycles and decades of heavy rainfall and unaccustomed cold and stuff like that. Adopted agriculture and stock raising, which revolutionized human life. All right. Anyways, let's continue with the paragraph B now. The Little Ice Age lasted from roughly 1300 until the middle of the 19th century. Only 2 centuries ago, Europe experienced a cycle of bitterly cold winters. Okay, we might want to underline that. Mountain glaciers in the Swiss Alps were the lowest in recorded memory, and the pack ice surrounded Iceland for much of the year. The climatic events of the Little Ice Age did more than help shape the modern world. So we want that as well. Little Ice Age did more than hellish. So I want to highlight this one as well, because we have classifications. We have Little Ice Age, modern warm period, and medieval warm period. So we just want to make sure we are highlighting these just in case as well. They are the deeply important context for the current unprecedented global warming. Okay, so they are saying that, what is it saying? They're deeply important for the current unprecedented global warming. So unprecedented means something that has never happened before. Okay, so unprecedented global warming. The Little Ice Age, once again, the Little Ice Age was far from a deep freeze. However, rather than an irregular seesaw of rapid climatic shifts, few lasting more than a quarter century, driven by complex and still little understood interactions between the atmosphere and the ocean. Okay, so it was still little understood. The seesaw brought cycles of intensively cold winters and easterly winds, then switched abruptly to years and of heavy springs and early summer rains, mild winters, and frequent Atlantic storms, or to periods of droughts, light northeasterly winds, and summer heat waves. So, what is it trying to say here? All right, pretty complex. I mean, I wouldn't say it's that much of a complex, but however, so basically, last sentence we can see that it's giving some sort of changes in climate, such as summer rains, mild winters, and frequent lightning storms, or to periods of droughts, and blah blah blah. By what we can find, the climatic events of the Little Ice Age did more than help shape the world. They are the deeply important concept for the current unprecedented global warming. So, if I highlight this sentence, so if I might want to highlight this sentence, the Little Ice Age was far from deep freeze. So, they are deeply important context. What is so we want to find the word they are. So they are deeply. The climatic events of the Little Ice Age did more than help shape the world. They are deeply. So how did they shape the world? The Little Ice Age was far from a deep freeze. However, rather than irregular seasons of rapid climatic shifts, few lasting more than a quarter century, driven by complex and still little understood interactions between the atmosphere and the ocean. The seesaw brought cycles of intensively cold winters and. All right, so they are deeply. They're saying. The climatic events of the Little Ice Age did more than help to shape the world. And it's saying that climatic events of the Little Ice Age are important in today's unknown global warming. So like unprecedented means unknown, something that hasn't happened before. So unprecedented global warming. So pretty much we can see. All right, in a study covering 1,000 years, no growing need for weather records, of course not. How cities contribute to climate change, the relevance of the Little Ice Age today. Okay, so we have number 2 as the answer for us. So we might want to put 2 there. All right, so we get rid of that. So okay, and strike 3, please. Thank you. Now we're going to read paragraph C as well. Because just because it has answered for us, we have to make sure that we might also find some information from somewhere around. An answer for the summer completion or the classification. But for the video purposes, I'm going to go one by one. Reconstructing the climate changes of the past is extremely difficult. Okay, so reconstructing something about the past is extremely difficult. There we go. Because systematic weather observations began only a few centuries ago in Europe and North America, records from India and tropical Africa are even more recent. So, okay. I can probably find something here. The documentation of past weather conditions is limited. So limited means extremely difficult. All right. Records from India and tropical Africa are even more recent. For the time before records began, we have only proxy records. So, like, proxy means some sort of a task that you give someone to do because you cannot do it yourself. So, tree rings and ice cores, supplemented by a few incomplete written accounts. We now have hundreds of tree ring records from throughout the northern hemisphere. Okay, we have northern hemisphere here, and many from south of the equator too, amplified with a growing body of temperature data from ice cores drilled in Antarctica. So paragraph C is as number 5, how past climatic conditions can be determined. All right, so we're close to a knowledge of annual summer and winter temperature variations over much of the modern hemisphere going back 600 years. Okay, so it's saying proxy records, some sort of a systematic weather observations. So it says systematic weather observations began only a few centuries ago. Okay, even more recently in India and tropical Africa. Records from India and tropical Africa are even more recent. Okay. So before records began, what did I do? So for the time before records began, we have only proxy records, or constructed largely from tree rings and ice cores, supplemented by a few. So we have something here. So conditions of distance past area. That's really interesting here to find. So we need conditions in the distance past or something and something else. All right. So there was only proxy records. So do you have proxy records? No, we don't have a similar word there. So before records began, we have only proxy records constructed largely from tree rings and ice cores. So tree rings and ice cores. Do we have it? So we have tree rings and ice cores. So maybe I want to ice cores, tree rings and ice cores. So tree rings and ice cores. I'm gonna take C and put B here and put it as red. So we have once again. We have only proxy reconstruct from the largest. So before the time. So it says documentation of past weather condition. This is limited because you can see that's something. It's documentation of past weather condition. Documentation means written accounts. So what is it saying here? It is we can see that documentation of past weather condition is limited. So climatic changes of the past is extremely difficult because systematic weather observations began only a few centuries ago. Okay, and then our main sources of knowledge of conditions in the distant past are, so for the time before records began, we have only proxy records reconstructed largely from tree rings and supplemented by few incomplete written accounts. So we have written accounts as a synonym for documentation. Written accounts, we have to know that. So all right, so and then we have we can deduce means conclude that the Little Ice Age was a time of, so time of what? But we remember, so we have now so okay, we don't, do we have anything that we can deduce that Little Ice Age was a time of something rather than consistent freezing? But it says consistent freezing was somewhere right here, was it? Because deep freeze, we can see that there's a word called deep freeze, and I might want to highlight that in green. So deep freezing. So consistent always means behaving in the same way or having the same thing or something, maybe opinions, standards, or changes. So the Little Ice Age, or is it that? So did more. Okay, no, not really. Okay, so the Little Ice Age was far from deep freeze. Is it? So, however, rather than an irregular seesaw of rapid climatic shifts, we have rapid climatic shifts. Climatic shift or climatic was a time of something rather than consistent freezing. Climatic shifts. So we have A. Or I mean not, is it A? That's most probably climatic shifts. So it's A as a letter. You might want to highlight that as well. Within it, there were some periods of very cold winters, others of something and heavy rain, and yet others that saw something with no rain at all. Okay. The seesaw brought cycles of intensively cold winters. So rather than consistent, within there was some periods of cold winters. We have cold winters, and easterly winds. Cold winters. Others of easterly winds. Then switched abruptly to years of heavy spring and early summer rains, mild winters. So the word northeasterly winds, or synonyms for storms. So I just want to take that and put storms as well. So take storms. You might want to make sure that these questions they require a deep understanding of not really of deep, but at least a foundational understanding of synonyms and how paraphrases work. So then switched abruptly to yours. So, and heavy rain. Heavy rain. Do we have heavy rain? Do we have? There we go. We have heavy spring and early summer rains. We have that as well. And yet others that saw something with no rain at all. Frequent Atlantic storm or the periods to droughts, little northwinds and summer heat waves. So we know heat waves. The writer is saying periods of droughts, light northeasterly winds and summer heat waves. So changes in climate also brought heat waves, periods of very high temperatures, right? So long periods, we have two periods of drought. So long periods, we have long periods. So ice cores, and yet others that saw what? Okay, they saw and heavy rain, yet others saw something with no rain at all. So I think that's pretty much heat waves. So we have heat waves there, right? So is that heat waves? Maybe we just really have to make sure that we're choosing a correct answer. Although I'm pretty much 100% sure that it's heat waves, but we also have to make sure. So because it's saying the seesaw, it's that the seesaw of changes, and I mean climate also brought heat waves, which is a periods of very high temperatures, and drought, long periods with no rain. So droughts, long periods with no rain. So we have to be 100% confident that our answer is pretty much heat waves. So should we think more about that? I do not really think so. So I think we're going to choose G for that. So there we go. We finished the classification, and we're going to return back. But so we understand basically the paragraph for the C. I mean about what's going on in the C paragraph. Now, this book is a narrative history of climatic shifts during the past 10 centuries. So during the past 10 centuries, and some of the ways in which people in Europe adapted to it. Part 1 describes medieval warm period. Okay, we have medieval warm period. We just want to highlight that as well. Roughly 900 to 1200 year. Okay, and we have during these 3 centuries, Norse voyagers from northern Europe explored North Seas. So we have North voyagers and visited North America. It was not a time of uniform warmth. We remember the word uniform. A warm period that happens at its own time or a particular season. For then, as always, since the Great Ice Age, there were constant shifts in rainfall and temperatures. Mean European temperatures were about the same as today, perhaps slightly cooler. That's another interesting question we have. So what do we have here? So sometimes it's lagging, it doesn't want to go, it doesn't want to come back. So okay. So okay, this book is a narrative history of climatic shifts during the past 10 centuries. So this book is referring to what? Which book? What book? Interesting. A study. Okay, it's referring to a study. Past 10 centuries. So we have a century that is about 10 centuries. 1 century is 100 years. 10 centuries is 1,000. So we have 10 centuries. Okay. So what is it doing here? Narrative history of climatic shifts. A study covering thousands of years. Of course. Well, of course, that should be obvious, is it? So we want to take that as well. There we go, and highlight that and remove it. Paragraph E. Alright, we have a long one. It is known that Little Ice Age cooling began in Greenland and the Arctic in about 1200. As the Arctic ice pack spread southward, Norse voyages to the west were rerouted into the open Atlantic, then ended altogether. Storminess increased in the North Atlantic and North Sea. Colder, much wetter weather descended on Europe between 1315, so 1315 and 1319, when thousands perished in a continent-wide famine. By 1400, the weather had become decidedly more unpredictable and stormier, when sudden shifts and lower temperatures then culminated in the cold decades of the late 6th century. Fish were a vital commodity. In growing towns and cities, where food supplies were a constant concern. So here we have food supplies. Dried cod and herring was already the staples of the European fish trade. So cod and herring is a type of fish. But changes in water temperatures forced fishing fleets to work further offshore. The Basques, Dutch, and English developed the first offshore fishing boats adapted to a colder and stormy Atlantic. A gradual agricultural revolution in northern Europe stemmed from concerns over food supplies at a time of rising populations. The revolution involved intensive commercial farming and growing of animal fodder on land not previously used for crops. The increased productivity from farmland made some countries self-sufficient in grain and livestock and offered effective protection against famine. Okay. Alright, so what is it talking about? How cities contribute to no, not really. So it's talking about food. We understood that. So what else is it talking about? One thing we know is about the food, because fish were a vital commodity in growing towns and cities, where food supplies were a constant concern. It was concern. So because type of fish like cod and herring were already the staples of the European fish trade, but changes in water temperature forced fishing fleets to work further offshore. A gradual agricultural revolution in northern Europe stemmed from concerns over the food supplies at a time rising population. The revolution involved intensive commercial farming and growing of animal fodder on land not previously used for crops. The increased productivity, so increased productivity is because of the intensive commercial farming and growing of animal fodder. From farmland made some countries self-sufficient in grain, livestock. We know that livestock is a place where you keep animals, and offered effective protection against famine. So livestock and animals, grain and livestock. Okay. So self-sufficient, we know that it's talking something related to the food. Self-sufficient, enough. So we know that enough food at last. So we want to take that as well. So there we go. Now we want to remove it. Now for the paragraph F. Global temperatures began to rise slowly after 1850 with the beginning of the modern war period. There we go. There was a vast migration from Europe by land-hungry farmers and others, to which the famine caused by the Irish potato blight contributed, to North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Southern Africa. So this one has to be a large as, or maybe small as, doesn't matter. Millions of hectares of forest and woodland fell before the newcomers' access between 1850s and 1890s as intensive European farming methods expanded across the world. The unprecedented land clearance released vast quantities of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, triggering for the first time humanly caused global warming. Temperatures climbed more rapidly in the 20th century as the use of fossil fuels proliferated and greenhouse gas levels continued to soar. Okay, so the use of fossil fuels proliferated and greenhouse gas levels continued to soar, which means to increase, or maybe to soar is to I think soar. So soar is a synonym for what was that? Increase? No. Yeah. So I think soaring was increasing, but very quickly. So the rise has been even steeper since the early 1980s. The Little Ice Age has given way to a new climatic regime. So it is pretty much talking about migration. At the same time, extreme weather events like Category 5 hurricanes are becoming more frequent. So there we go. We have because of the migration process, when they migrated, so because it's a vast migration from Europe by land-hungry farmers and others, resulting in the spread of European intensive farming methods to other countries, right? To which cause the Irish potato blight contributed to North America 1, Australia 2, New Zealand 3, and Southern Africa 4. So millions of hectares and forest woodland fell before the newcomers' access between 1850s and 1890s as intensive European farming methods expanded across the world. So most probably, it could somehow say, but it's of course number one. It's not anything anywhere near, because it's not predicting how cities contribute to climate change, but there's nothing about cities human impact on the climate. Yes, 100%, because all right, so because when hungry people from Europe started coming with a vast amount, extreme weather events like Category 5 hurricanes became more frequent. So okay, we have that as a chance to answer number F as what? That's number 4. So is it number 4? Yes, number 4. Okay, now we're going to remove that one as well. Take that, and now still we're left. Okay, we're not left with here, but we're left with what? We're left with classifications. Now we remember that classification is a little bit hard here. All right, so we have many Europeans started farming abroad. The cutting of something. So many Europeans started farming abroad. Farming started here. So we know that farming, commercial farming, or was it land? What was that? Many Europeans started farming abroad. So because Irish potato blight contributed, and blah blah blah. So modern warm period, where European land-hungry farmers and others migrated to other countries like North America, Australia, or New Zealand. So this means who? This means that they moved to other countries to start farming. So there was a vast migration from Europe by land-hungry farmers and others, to which the famine caused by the Irish potato blight contributed to. So they went farming in North America, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. But who did it? Of course, modern warm period. We want to put C there. That's not E, but C. Okay, there we go. The cutting down of trees began to affect the climate change. We know that climatic change is once again here. Millions of hectares of forest and woodland fell before the newcomers' access between 1915 and 1850s and 1890s, as intensive European farming methods expanded. So European farming methods expanded around the world. So who did this? So pretty much, once again, millions of hectares and blah blah blah. First, the humanly caused global warming. So what is it saying that because of the farming, because intensive European farming methods caused. So what caused it? The unprecedented land clearance released vast quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, triggering for the first time humanly caused global warming. So is that an effect? Of course, but because they started cutting down the trees, carbon dioxide started releasing. A large amount of carbon dioxide started releasing, and it was considered as the first time human cause global warming. So we have, once again, C for us. And then, but it's not Europeans, guys. We don't have anything new in Europe. We don't have Europeans as the answer. All right. So what are we left with? Europeans discovered other lands. Other lands. So okay, let's first read. There was a vast migration. We know that vast migration from Europe. So Europeans discovered other lands. But I know that they discovered other lands. We know that Norse voyagers from northern Europe explored northern seas. So during these 3 centuries, Norse voyagers from northern Europe explored northern seas, settled Greenland, and visited North America. But who did that? So discovered is explored. We have discovered as explored for us, and discovered other lands. If you ask the lands, there are Greenland, North America, and so on and so forth. So who did this? Medieval. We want to find that, or is it? So we're saying during these 3 centuries, Norse voyagers. So of course, it's not modern, but it should be. So it's during the time of medieval warm period. Europeans discovered other lands like Greenland and North America. So of course we can understand 10 centuries in the past 10 centuries. Logically speaking, I don't think it can be modern there. So of course also the explanation for this, it was probably not met here. As always, since the great ice age, there was constant shift in rainfall and temperature. Okay, where does it exactly mention about that? All right, so this book is a narrative of blah blah blah. Narrative of climatic shifts during the past 10 centuries. So once again, during the past centuries, we don't want to waste time. So we know that during past 10 centuries is talking about medieval warm period instead of modern. So we want to put A there. Changes took place. Okay, what exactly changes? What exact changes we're talking about? Changes took place. What kind of changes? But changes in water temperatures forced fishing fleets to work further offshore. So fishing fleets are a group of fishing. The fishing fleets are a group of ships that fish together. Okay, so who did it? It is known that the Little Ice Age cooling began in Greenland. So Little Ice Age, we have that. Dried cod and herring was already the staples of the European fish trade, but changes in water temperature forced fishing fleets to work further offshore. The Basques, Dutch, and English developed the first offshore fishing boats. So dried cod and herring are 2 kinds of fish, and the changes in water temperatures made people to go further offshore to catch the fish. So what period? Of course, Little Ice Age. And of course, once again, there will be always, since we have 4 questions, 4 sentences, and there are only 3 options, every single one of them is going to be met. So yeah, we're not left without any one option not being used. All right, so there we go, guys. We finished reading passage 2, and I hope this was this wasn't necessarily easy. It was, of course, a little bit. We had to use our knowledge, or let's say minds, to understand the context, the details, make inferences and stuff like that. We made inferences, of course, for the question number 25, where it said explored in the past 10 centuries. We remember it's all the past 10 centuries over here. We understood that it's medieval warm period. So anyway, guys, If you have found the video helpful, please make sure to subscribe, like it, of course, if you found it helpful. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful time.